It started in 1897 in Basel, Switzerland, when the International Zionist Conference secretly convened behind closed doors. It was led by Theodor Herzl, who is often referred to as the father of Zionism. Plans were developed at this conference to take Palestine from its non-Jewish inhabitants, no matter what the cost. Jews made up only 5% of the population in the early 1900s, and they lived in peace with the Arabs at the time. "20 years after the Zionist Conference, in 1917, England's Lord Balfour sent a message to the Zionist Rothschild. This message is referred to now as the Balfour Declaration. It said that England favored in Palestine a national home for the Jewish people. But it also said, it is clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of the existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine." Zionists came en masse, and these Zionist terrorists began to take the land from the Palestinians, who had lived there all their lives. These Jews from foreign lands said that it was their land now, as they divided up the map. The Jewish terrorists began to train themselves so they could oust the native Palestinians. Once trained, they were now ready to destroy the surrounding areas. The Zionist terrorists kicked in doors and took the Palestinians from their homes. These Jewish supremacists dehumanized the Arabs, forcing them to leave or be imprisoned. Why was this done? The Palestinians committed the terrible crime of not being Jewish. Came to the land, which had once been relatively peaceful, and the Zionist terrorists forced the Arabs from their homes into the desert. The Zionists dropped bombs that scorched the earth, releasing their hellfire on an unsuspecting population. The tanks destroyed villages where civilians peacefully lived. Smoke and fire filled the air, which became a dark cloud. As the tanks came, Palestinian children and others scrambled for their lives. The fires consumed many. An untold number of victims were seriously injured, often carried away on stretchers. Many died. Some lost limbs, others eyes. The days were filled with sorrow and bitterness. The Israeli Zionist generals hatched their plots to take even more land. Many wanted to restore Israel's ancient boundary lines and keep it exclusively Jewish. The Zionist helicopters flew overhead, spitting out rounds from machine guns. The Zionist military continued to wreak havoc on the land and population, destroying anything in its way. The Zionists gathered up the Palestinians. The Palestinians were often trucked away, far from where they had lived all their lives. Their homes were stolen. They became like cattle, herded together in the back of trucks. Meanwhile, the Zionists watched them, with machine guns to their heads, hoping that some excuse would warrant them to pull the trigger, putting their flags everywhere. The book The Modern Jew, published in 1899 in London, England, reported, quote, "Until 30 years ago, Jews in Palestine were very few in number, probably to be reckoned by hundreds rather than thousands," end quote. Now, these Zionists took the land. What had been hundreds became millions, with Jews from around the world moving there and then saying they had more of a right to the land than the Palestinians. Smoke from the Zionist attacks continued to fill the air. Planes that loosed explosives on unsuspecting civilians everywhere, dropping their bombs on any non-Jewish targets who dared to stay in the area. In order to survive, many Palestinians left all they had in their homes and fled the area. Zionists continued to round up others who hadn't left. Zionist troops were on the move, chasing their innocent non-Jewish victims down. In 1948 Jaffa, Palestine, many non-Jews were literally forced to leave by sea. Buildings everywhere continued to be destroyed. Bodies of Palestinians, not far from what had once been their homes, were strewn everywhere. People who had once lived in cities were now forced to live in tents provided by humanitarians. Literally, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were forced into the barren desert. So many tents went up that tent cities came into existence. As Zionists gathered in their foxholes, many Palestinians continued to flee. The homes of non-Jews were burnt to the ground by the Zionists. The terrorism exhibited by the Zionists stopped at no one, even bombing England's King David Hotel. Dozens of innocent people, mostly British, were murdered there. Menachem was responsible for the murders at the King David Hotel. Despite this, Begin later became Prime Minister of Israel. The Zionist leader Yitzhak Shamir was responsible for hanging Britons and booby-trapping their corpses with explosives. Count Bernadette, the United Nations mediator, tried to bring peace to the area. He was a true humanitarian, having worked with the Boy Scouts, helped the Red Cross, and helped bring many Jews to safety in World War II. He thought he had nearly attained peace when Yitzhak Shamir gang of terrorists surrounded his unarmed car and murdered him in point-blank range with a shot to the head. This occurred on September 17, 1948. A few years earlier, Yitzhak Shamir terrorist force had also killed Lord Moyne. A wanted poster was issued for Shamir's arrest. What became of this vicious hate-monger who was responsible for murdering many people? Yitzhak Shamir, also known as Yitzhak Shamir, became Prime Minister of Israel. Several years later, in a 1977 interview with historian Nicholas Bethel, Shamir said, "I think killing Lord Moyne helped the Jewish cause. There are times when you have to use such methods." And indeed, the Zionist terrorists did use such methods. In 1948, these Jewish terrorists went from house to house and murdered all who resided there in what is now known as the Dirty Yassin Massacre. The Zionists murdered young men, old men, women, children, and babies, many who stood in the way of the Zionists' ultimate goal of making Palestine Arab free. Palestinians who slept were not spared from the Zionist Holocaust. Many Palestinians fled the area rather than take the chance of being the next Zionist victim. Israelis then said that these Palestinians forfeited their homes for life. Many Palestinians, some forced to leave, others just trying to escape a certain doom, could never return home again.